Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get the maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd greatly appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. And if we get a comment or a question from you through the internet on an email, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody chooses to do that, because it just makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that is just so much easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. What's most beneficial for you in following or listening to the show? Is it the reading of the books? Is it the working through the worksheets? Is it questions that clarify the worksheet process? Or is it some other aspect of the work that we're not tuned into yet? How can we support you? What is on your mind? We have plenty of time. Of course, I looked at the calendar the other day and realized that we don't have lots and lots of time before Christian Sundberg joins us on August 8th. It's a Friday morning. So please remember to get your questions ready for him. If all goes well, I'll check in with him next week to verify that he's still planning on joining us on August 8th. And in the meantime, your questions are valued. And if there's anything we can do to make this work more resonant for you, more effective, effective in whatever way, please let us know.
So, Dr. Tim,
Yes.
I might have to leave early, and so I wanted to ask a question right away. We just had our support group, and the discussion focused on Carl Jung's shadow. And Michael Ryce often says, if you don't bring the shadow material out, you will think it's fate. And one thing that was said in our group was that the shadow isn't just negative stuff. It's has a lot to do with our creativity. Of course, that I don't know what to even how to fit that in, because I think of whatever creative stuff that I'm aware of doing, it isn't in the shadow because it's out there. Anyway, I'd love to hear you talk about the shadow, um, and maybe even have Christian Sundberg talk about that. I think of the,
So
yeah,
go ahead. What is it? How do you think of the shadow? What's your definition for the shadow?
any part of myself that I'm not aware of that is probably negative and affecting my life in ways that I'm not aware of because I'm not aware of the shadow. Uh, and so uh, like Fenelon, he says, "Oh, all this stuff is bubbling up. I found myself to be just this despicable person, and I realize, as I realize that, I'm beginning my work to become whole." And I think of my shadow as anything that I don't know I'm doing, and any negative feeling I might have, where does that come from? It's a reservoir of dark stuff.
Well, dark only in the sense that we have judged it as bad or wrong and we're withholding the light of awareness from it. It's not dark in terms of, um, it's amoral or it's illegal, right? It's dark because we've labeled it something we don't want to deal with. And so we've turned our awareness away from it.
Right.
But if when you look at the definitions they give for Jung and his work and shadow work, you know, it's it's just about whatever the individual has labeled unacceptable or bad or wrong or necessary to hide from either themselves or their social group or their family group.
So Jung is saying that we should become conscious of that, not necessarily act on it. That wouldn't be the idea, but just see ourselves as a full spectrum human
Well,
with,
and furthermore, what he's saying is that in the quote that Michael Ryce likes to bring out, if you don't bring the darkness, the shadow work to the light of awareness, whenever it gets resonated, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. So the shadow work is having an impact on you, whether you're doing your own shadow work and bringing it to the surface or not. What you're thinking about, what you're afraid of, what you're holding on to is trauma energies. Every time those things get resonated into activity, they express because they affect how you think and feel and act.
mm-hmm.
But it isn't, shadow material is not limited to negative things that every human being who looks at it would label it as negative. It's not, it doesn't work that way. It's whatever the individual has come to believe is bad or wrong or unacceptable or will get them ostracized or whatever. And that's what they turn their awareness away from, or that's what they deny as going on inside of themselves. And so when they deny and suppress or repress something, then it just adds energy to it and it mucks up their life. It mucks up their relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people that have a history of watching their parents have a really bad relationship growing up. And then the parents, whether they stayed together or got divorced, doesn't really matter. What matters is now I'm dealing with an adult who, when they were a child, their parents had a really ugly, abusive relationship. And now here's this adult in front of me. If this person is not actively working on the difficulties in their relationships, their lives are being driven by their shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
And their shadow work is everything they saw go on between their mom and dad that was unpleasant and unhappy and abusive or angry or whatever, that they are pushing out of their conscious awareness so they can just function in the world. But every time that gets resonated into activity, you better believe it's having an impact on what they think and say and do.
So it's a matter of awareness. It might not go away because you're aware of it. You just are sitting there looking at it, which is that's the phase I'm in. I might have an instant dislike of someone, or maybe it's not instant. But I'm watching this less than loving feeling toward a person, and I'm asking myself, well, what do I do that's like that, or have I ever done that? Often it's amazingly different. The other person is doing what I'm doing, but doing it less subtly than I am. So that I think, well, I could keep doing it because I'm more subtle at it. But that's still part of the dark judging. So, but the shadow has been, the flashlight has been shined on that, but it doesn't go away just because I'm aware of it. In fact, it's quite dramatic how uncomfortable a feeling I might have now that I've become aware of some trait in myself that I've been projecting or noticing in another person. I'm not projecting on them. I think I'm seeing something they're doing, but I'm hating it. Anyway, I'm going on and not being very articulate now.
Well, when you say you're not projecting, but you're seeing something going on and hating it, chances are you're projecting, right? When you have a negative reaction to something, it's stirring negativity inside you.
Mm-hmm.
How did that get there? How did you download it? What are you making it mean? Why are you holding on to it? I don't know. Those are all good questions that we encourage people to engage in when they do their work.
Mm-hmm. But you're saying what I think I see isn't really there. I disagree. I think sometimes it may be there, but why am I having this reaction to it? What am I making it mean, as you say? It might be there, like somebody who keeps kicking trees. It's actually true that that person goes by trees and kicks them. But my reaction to it is, if it's upsetting, then it's part of my shadow.
Yeah, yeah, it is not upsetting.
Right.
The upset is created by and inside of the person who feels the upset.
Right. But I'm not projecting that that other person is kicking trees.
No, but you are projecting a meaning onto it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But that isn't a projection. That's just defining it. Oh, anyway, who cares?
Well, but yeah, who cares? I obviously care because I'm trying to clear it up a little bit, right? Because
Right.
because we're just trying to talk about what I'm trying to get across is the idea that if you're experiencing an upset, you're the one creating the upset.
Oh, yeah. I can say that for sure.
So
Well,
everything else is just details on that fundamental point.
okay. And with one particular type of behavior that I find objectionable, I have done wake up sheets on it. I have admitted that I do the same thing. However, the reaction is still there. And so maybe this is a 77 times 7. Something's missing. I'm not dissolving. With the use of the tools, I'm not dissolving.
And what is the issue that you keep working on but doesn't get resolved?
It's a certain behavior that I think I see in other people that I do in myself.
A certain behavior that you see in other people.
Yeah. A couple of other people.
And then when you see that in other people, you generate upset?
Yeah. Aversion, judgment, impatience.
That's the behavior you see from them? Being
No,
impatient?
no, that's my reaction.
Okay. And how have you been working on that using the tools?
Wake up sheets mainly.
Okay.
Anyway,
So
I think,
are you at the point where you're feeling like there's an impasse because you're not making any progress?
yeah.
All right. So what do you want to do about that? You want to frame out a worksheet? Do you want to talk about
Hmm.
if there's a different tool that would be more effective? What do you want to do with that proclamation you just made?
Oh, good question.
Thanks.
Uh,
It's my job.
yeah. Let me think about that. I don't want to do anything right now on the radio show.
All right. That's fine. I just don't want to leave you hanging if you were hoping that we would do something.
No,
Okay.
and I'm expecting somebody to come by any minute. So if I disappear, I will miss the rest of the show, and probably Dr. Michael Ryce is too bad. I hate to, but anyway, thanks.
Okay. You're entirely welcome. I'm not sure what we helped you with, but maybe it'll
Well,
stir some thoughts for somebody else. It's an amazing thing. There are people if you hang out in the reality management worksheet group, if you go to a Mind Shifters support group, if you show up for the Mind Shifters radio show, you might get the idea that there's all kinds of people out there who are actively looking at their stuff and working on their stuff and trying to get to be a better person and have a more loving response to everything in the world and you might think that's kind of normal. But the truth of the matter is, while there are many, many people doing it, it's a very small percentage of the population of people who are actually looking at the inside themselves whenever there's any kind of an upset, whenever there's any kind of a flow of life that they have judged as bad or wrong or inappropriate. And so if you're even willing to acknowledge that it's an inside job, even if you can't yet effectively bring the tools to bear in a way that it resolves the upset, you're way ahead of the game because you're at least understanding that it's an inside job. And that, there really aren't any words for how much that puts you ahead of the game. You absolutely will continue to benefit if you're willing to use the tools and on into infinity, right? It's the quote from Michael Ryce where he says they were asking Yeshua how many times do we have to forgive or do this worksheet process, and of course that's a tongue-in-cheek comment because they didn't have worksheets back then, but the answer is an infinite number of times until it's complete. So there's no skipping steps, right? There's no magic wand that gets waved that creates for us this super blissful state that we then live in for the rest of our lives. We have this active engagement as a process that we are able to do with life. We're interacting with life, we're making choices, etc., on a regular basis. And it's our choices that keep changing our experience of life. So if you're one of those people who has said, hey, you know what, I'm noticing aspects of my life that I don't prefer, and I'm looking for ways I might change things I have control over in order to help this situation be different. Well, if you're that kind of person and you've stumbled across tools like Dr. Michael Ryce's Reality Management Worksheet and the targeted journaling that he calls the Mind Shifter and the host of other tools that they make available from the 3 early memories of conflict through the codependence to interdependence worksheet, etc. If you're willing to pick those tools up and use them, you may be at it for the rest of your life, and yet your life will just continue to get better to whatever degree you're willing to just keep applying the tools to that which doesn't seem to fit for you as a person.
Dr. Tim,
Yes,
let me ask a question.
yes.
Um, so with what Susan was talking about and the time in my life that I had the most peace, I wasn't judging other people. I would, when I saw them do something that maybe I would have in the past seen as inappropriate or, would have caused upset in me, I would say, that's their path, not mine. For whatever reason, that's appropriate for them to do right now. My question is that a way of avoiding emotion, do you think? Because the way Susan was framing it, and of course there was upset there, I understand there's work to do if we're in upset, but if we look at it in a way that that's their path, can you
So are you
see that
saying,
as,
are you asking whether or not allowing someone to live their own life with allowance and surrender on your part, if that's hiding your emotions? Is that what you're asking?
yeah, if it's something that like used to bother me, but now I'm like, well, I don't know why they have to do that, but for whatever reason they do.
Well, when you say if it used to bother you, does it mean if it doesn't bother you anymore? Right? The answer to your question is contained inside the individual who asks the question. So it's going to be different for different people. For some people, yes, they will absolutely use tools as a distraction, right? They'll do spiritual bypass and they'll do whatever they need to do to avoid taking responsibility for their own internal life, their own emotions, etc. But only the person themselves would be able to answer that.
Yeah, I
On
really,
the other hand, there are people who have learned, hey, look, it doesn't benefit me to walk around judging other people. I don't like how I feel inside me. I don't like the interactions that it stirs up between me and the other person. So I'm choosing allowance and surrender and acceptance. And
okay.
and
Yeah,
that and that is not hiding my emotions.
right. Yeah, because I used to always say, I don't know what's right for them. Half the time, I don't even know what's right for myself. Who am I to judge what they're doing? And it just raised that question for me. I fighting something, so I think I just realized that it was about honoring another person's path. Thank you for helping me to clarify that in
Well,
a
you're
nice,
welcome.
neat little box.
And of course, the answer is always going to be this living, unfolding thing. So tomorrow, if you ask the same question, it might be a different truth that answers it. But it's
Right,
really useful for every situation that I'm experiencing. It's very useful for me to understand that I'm the one that's creating that experience. And this is true even though we had somebody in the group last night who was just, very, very triggered to upset and used that kind of wording as the target for their upset. Doesn't really
right.
matter. You can use the fact that they make Twinkies with artificial food coloring. You could use that and choose to use that as some target for your upset. You're the one creating your
Absolutely,
upset, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And knowing that this is our path, this is what we came here to do, um, makes those trials and tribulations easier for me to accept, on that same line of what happened in group last night. Uh, that this is my purpose. This is my purpose. I get to work through some of this stuff so that maybe my son or my grandchildren don't have to, or um, whoever that might be that's in my presence, or the ripple effect that goes out to the world. And I'm just loving being in this space. So with that,
Okay.
I will.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying being in the space, and I hope that to whatever degree you continue to use them, the tools can keep working for you.
They work when you work them.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
You're very welcome and deserving. Thanks for the call and the comments. Well, I'll walk back to the walk in the physical with Christian Sundberg. We were getting through the Q&A in the third section of the book, and he writes, I'm frustrated in my search for answers. It seems like the constant questioning and search for answers is never enough. Should we just accept that we can never know so that we can get some peace? And Christian writes, thought is a form experienced by consciousness. And the word form in quotes, quote, form, close quotes, it never satisfies ultimately because by definition, a form is a form and it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is that which transcends and encompasses everything in form, which means words and thoughts and objects and people, etc. So all that is transcends and encompasses everything you see as a physical form. He writes, the thinking human mind only deals with form and understands with form, yet it will never find the peace and the full knowing within the world of form. It will never find peace and full knowing within thinking. Even thinking won't do it. No matter how many forms the mind or consciousness might look through, it's not going to find all that is in words, in thoughts, in forms. Meanwhile, the piece of capital B being is native, it's fundamental, it's built into who and what you are. As we let go of actually all of the thoughts about and all the labelings, as we let go and settle into the peace of being, we have a transcendent experience. We experience ourselves and the aliveness and our awareness of itself, and there's no thought or label to it. And there's no busying ourselves with how will I communicate this to another person. You're just in the moment, fully being it, experiencing it. He talks about how when the thought momentum slows down, and this is something that Abraham Hicks talks about a lot, when you've got a powerful momentum going for a pattern of thought in a certain direction that is being experienced by you as unpleasant or negative, it's not a real good thing to try and change that right away. What we want to do is slow the momentum of the negative force or thoughts or emotions. And as we slow that negative momentum enough, he writes, that peace will return all on its own, that peace that passes all understanding, the peace that passes words and thoughts. And then he writes in parentheses, and then, interestingly, the true knowing of capital B being contains all the answers we were seeking anyway. They're just communicated without all of the words, without all of the letters, without all of the judgments. So this is one of those mind-boggling things where it says, look, quit trying to find the answers, quit trying to figure it out. And once you quit trying to figure it out, all the answers will be coming your way. And yet you can't try to quit figuring it out to try and help the answers come to you faster. It just doesn't work that way. So the next question is, in physical terms, what is love? Is love a field or is it some other physical force? And Christian writes, the human mind tends to try to associate everything with the forms of this world. We think in terms of, quote, things as being most real, close quotes. Even ideas of things like, quote, a field, close quotes. And then we try to identify higher truths with those things. Yet things arise within beingness, not the other way around. Another way to say it is, the spirit is of love, and then a universe of things and ideas about things and like fields, and then that arises within spirit. The question we should ask is not, quote, what thing is love, close quotes, but rather we should engage in a search for being, capital B, being, and for what our life itself really is. We should be searching for a way to be in that being state and to understand what our life force itself actually is, what consciousness itself actually is. The next question he asks is, does the brain produce consciousness? And he writes, the follow-up of the question is, we can see that when a person's brain is altered in some way, their physical consciousness is affected. Doesn't this prove that our consciousness is a result of the brain? Christian's answer is very plainly, no. The brain does not produce consciousness. The brain and the body, he writes in parentheses, and the body, close parentheses, is more like a reduction valve. It's a significant physical constraint that the pre-existing living consciousness has agreed to experience for a little while. When the brain is altered, then the constraints change And what the individual may physically do or locally experience, that may change as well, because the brain is an integral part of the human character's body. However, the larger parts of self always remain deeply alive beneath any logical or biological result, any local biological result. And the local human consciousness can and will return to that deeper awareness when the constraints of having a brain have been released. So again, there's a lot more going on here than we can know about. And the question is, isn't it what Eben Alexander used to believe, that the brain was just random neural firings that gave rise to consciousness? And therefore consciousness is not separate from the physical world, the physical body, etc. And here Christian is saying unequivocally, no, it doesn't work that way. And even Alexander used to believe that consciousness was simply the byproduct of random neural firings until he had his own near-death experience, until he had, I think it was 7 days or more of living, of existing in a level where medical science says he could not possibly exist because his brain was not functioning. And Christian here is saying much the same thing even Alexander would say in his work. There's so much more going on here than just the physical world, and consciousness itself, awareness itself, is beyond our ability to comprehend it. We can have an experience of it and still not comprehend it. And by that I mean come up with words and language that neatly describe it so we can communicate it effectively from one person to another. It doesn't work that way. The knowledge in this way is the way of mastery talks about it as knowledge is this lived experience. It's not things you read in a book. It's not lists of words that you memorize. Knowledge in this sense is this in the moment, present, full, mindful engagement with the flow of life. That's what results in knowledge. That's knowledge itself. And you have this massively larger than you can imagine self, consciousness, your true self. And a tiny fraction of that conscious awareness is focused in the life experience you're having as a physical being, as a human being on this planet. That tiny little bit of your higher consciousness has agreed to forget that it has a higher consciousness, that it is always connected to its source. And it's only done that for the purpose of the play, of the experience, just to be able to say, hey, I did that. I learned from it. I got better at choosing for love in more and more difficult circumstances. The longer I was alive, the longer I used the tools, the longer I took responsibility for my internal creations of thoughts and emotions. And the more I do that, the better I get at uncovering the actual dynamic within me. And once I become aware of it, there's not a whole lot more to do. The awareness is the light. The awareness is the illumination. The awareness is the force for alchemical change. It's like the reagent. we can continue to pretend that our upsets are caused by the world around us. But when we do that, we strengthen the walls of the prison we've just built, and we lock the door and throw away the key. It's fascinating. I love how much my life has changed for the better as I began to work to analyze my own thoughts and my own regulatory speech and what it was revealing to me about what my mind was actually telling me. And it still does. There's still events from my past where, in spite of all of the years of training, now over 20 years of training with this work and massaging what I do with it, and when I pull out a tool and how I reframe this and how I teach this to somebody else and how I comfort my younger selves, when I'm doing all of that work, things keep getting better. And yet, at the drop of a hat, I can hear myself think or say something that relates to a big upset that happened, somewhere in my past. And I'll be as ready as the next person to blame and throw insult and to have swear words come to my mind. And if I'm not willing to accept 100% responsibility for that, then I can't change it. As long as I put it outside of myself and I say, well, I'm only feeling this because he, she, or they, or because it did this or that, then I literally prevent myself from being in a space where I could see any option for helping myself. Because I've just literally defined myself as a victim here. The next category he writes about is called fear and ego. And the question he asks is, why do people live? Yes.
Before you read Christian's Fear and Ego, I wanted to share about how much it has meant to me, this conversation this morning, and how precious each one of us are, and how we literally lift each other up by our bootstraps. Susan and Cammie's questions and comments related absolutely to last night's support group for me. And so I'm hoping tomorrow night that Rena will be on the show so that I can have you help me frame out a worksheet in relation to my response to her response. And because it was very insightful for me all the way around. And so I'm really excited about that. I want to share it in the support group because I would love to have Rena be there as I go through my worksheet that was piggybacked from her worksheet. And so I just wanted to have you help me remember to do that tomorrow night with you.
Okay. So it's something that you got stirred up for you in last night's support group, and you want to do a worksheet on it tomorrow night's support group, hoping that Rena will be there.
Yes, and also because things are coming up, things are being flushed up from underneath the shadow side, and maybe possibly new understandings, which, by the way, when you were talking about knowledge just now, I suddenly flashed on the possibility, well, there's head knowledge, which is information and quote-unquote evidence and facts and all this stuff. And there's heart knowledge, which for me is understanding, but it's a heartfelt awareness. And then there's the body knowledge, which is that live experiential base of the body knowing it, experiencing it fully. And it's like the awareness of myself as this multifaceted being, and how it's the integrative process of bringing all of that together into cohesion and unity. And even if they're at odds with each other, it's like the Middle East. Even if I'm fighting with myself on some level or another, it's all an integrating process. So I really appreciate and I'm grateful for this morning's conversation. And Christian Thunberg's Q and answers are just spot on with what we were talking about from my frame of reference. So I wanted to share that.
All righty. And whether Rena is in the group tomorrow or not, you're welcome to do the worksheet and or, overtly invite her, or she can listen to the replay or whatever. So.
Right. Oh, definitely. I would love to have you help me frame it out and see what other little nuggets can come to the surface, because I definitely am totally constricted in expressing my rage, and it gets projected out there again and again. And what I said last night in the support group is totally valid, that the courage to be able to express an emotion, but also the thought behind that for me that is my experience, that I have used my fear as an addiction to suppress my rage because it would have been too dangerous to express my rage. And so I would like to have that full spectrum of emotions and own all my emotions and not just get stuck in one polar end or the other. That would be lovely. And maybe I won't need to. Maybe I will never need to express my rage just because I can allow myself to. But I'm sure if the stress is up and the chips are down, it's going to come out. I just want to own it when it comes out and feel it fully so I can have the full spectrum.
Well, and the other side of the coin that we talk about with this is that for most of us, rage is that drug. It's that numbing out or distracting from a pain, fear, or sadness that we don't think we can tolerate or that we don't want to experience. So, shouting into a hole in the woods or beating a pillow or getting into martial arts and learning how to beat people up, none of these are good solutions for dismantling rage.
Right.
They're good solutions for feeding rage, but not dismantling it.
Right. And I think that it could also be true for fear, because fear just runs my life in quote unquote unsafe situations that I have chosen to see as unsafe or compelled because of my life experiences and the meaning I gave them. Yeah. For me, it's a swinging door. I don't care whether the person is the fear and the victim or the person is the predator and the rager. It's a swinging door. And I know I have both. I've experienced both. I recognize both. And I would just like to be able to flesh that out in a mental short form worksheet tomorrow night, because that form really works for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll look forward to doing that.
Oh, I will too. And the tears will probably come, and that's cool. And we'll talk about that tomorrow night too.
All right. Anything else for you today?
No, I am complete. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank me, sir. I'll thank me too. And
All
Rena,
right.
and Cammie and Susan.
Indeed. Well, here's the next Q&A in line is, why do people live with so much fear? What is the core root of fear? And Christian writes, fear is a response when consciousness is exposed to a constraint set or a context that consciousness has not yet fully integrated. And then he puts the words, and mastered. He says, in that sense, fear is just a natural symptom of, quote, unevolvedness. So when a person has yet to evolve to the point where they have integrated an experience. And again, our definition for how can I know when I've integrated an experience when there's nothing about it that stirs up upset in me or fear in me or a negative response in me? That means I've integrated it. I've come to know it so well that nothing about it prompts me to use it as an excuse for generating upset. He writes, fear is reflective of the non-native separation, whereas love is reflective of the native fundamental unity. So fear reflects out this experience of being in danger and of being separated and of being perhaps even in a life-threatening situation, whereas love radiates out this awareness of the connection of all things and the total safety. He writes, fear occurs as consciousness, quote, buys into, close quotes, perceptions that are not in alignment with the truth. And then in parentheses, he writes here, truth, which is love in all situations and power and connectedness, close parentheses. He writes, and as one's biochemistry or neurochemistry then reflects their interpretation, then the ego is the personal construct that happens as the individual attempts to address the fear and, quote, reclaim, close quotes, his or her power. And belief often arises from ego as a way for the individual to, quote, settle, close quotes, or sort out what is going on, rather than having to face and feel the full unknown. Ultimately, there is nothing to fear. The very context of separation is not fundamental. It's an add-on. It's a temporary thing. It's a play. It's not fundamentally your truth that you're separate from people and things. You're not separated from anyone or anything. You've never been separated from your creator. Belief that you're separated is the result of an optical delusion. He writes, ultimately, there is nothing to fear. The very context of separation is not fundamentally real, and so neither are the apparent causes of the fear. The true cause of fear is not in the context itself, even if the context is rigorous. But the true cause of fear is in us, in our own inability to integrate that experience in the physical, our own yet unevolvedness, he writes. As we grow towards love, fear vanishes. As we grow towards love, fear vanishes. And as I look at the clock, there's not enough time to read the next question and answer and give it anything, but I will mention that the next question is about, I have a terrible fear of death. What can I do about it? And so we'll have that in our future in the next few days as we go back to reading that and exploring the Q&A from the book A Walk in the Physical by Christian Sundberg. So we have a few minutes for some comments or questions. Thank you for those who've already raised a hand and chimed in. And there has been talk about support groups today, so I will mention that we don't have one tonight. It'll be tomorrow. So again, please keep track of your questions that you might have come up either as we're doing our work, as we're reading a book, like a book by Christian Sundberg, or if you're living your life, if you've got questions that come up and you think, well, if this person knows something about life and why we're here that I don't know yet, I want to ask them this question or that question. Please write those down. Please start making notes. We've got, not that long a time. And August 8th, Christians should join us, and we'll have the opportunity to ask your questions and or just sit and listen if you're one of those who likes to sit and listen. And in the meantime, I will just remind us all that we come